get your good angles together because we are live streaming on the Facebook.
Thank you. Before some of us make an appearance, thank you.
Okay. So everyone, thank you for joining us for NP University. This course today that we are doing is a part of our housing security series. And this class specifically is our CD 1003.002, Preventing Foreclosure or Avoiding Foreclosure. So, classroom rules. Everyone, please try to keep your microphone muted. If you need to or you would like to, grab a pen and paper and a notebook and also a snack. This is a 2-hour course. Please keep your cameras on if you're trying to receive course credit for our CPC. That's the Certified Planner Certificate. Also, to ask any questions during our Q&A, which we have 2 lectures that will occur today. So if you want to ask after the first or after the second, make sure you raise your hand to get in the queue, and I'll show you on the next page how to do that. And please make sure all questions are relevant to course content. Specifically with this course, we find that a lot of people have a lot of well, that wasn't supposed to happen. They have a lot of personal things and experience. So we ask that you kind of limit that because we don't want to actually put too much of your information out there. Again, we are on Facebook. If there's something very specific you want to ask, you can always email the course instructors, in which you will all receive a copy of both presentations as well as the contact information for the course instructors. So that part about raising your hand to get in the queue. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a select reactions button. If you click on that, there'll be a little pop-up that comes up, this little black box with all these little wonderful things in them. Click on select hand. Once you select hand, it will automatically populate you and put you in the order, and then we'll go from there. Our course instructors for today, I am so proud again to partner Atlanta Legal Aid, DeKalb Legal Aid, with this course. I feel like when we were first actually creating courses for NPUU, this was literally one of the ones I wanted to talk about because I am a native Atlanta, and I watch a lot of times my neighbors are displaced just from not knowing and having the knowledge. So if there was any way that I could help bring that information to people, I was more than happy to partner with this organization to do so. So we will have Dr. Karen Brown. She is the director and managing attorney at DeKalb Legal Aid. And then Ms. Nadine Lang, who is a HUD certified housing counselor and senior paralegal. So these people know what they're talking about today, okay? So without further ado, we will actually get started. Ms. Nadine, are you ready to share your screen?
Yes, I am. And greetings to everyone. I'm so glad to be a part of this training piece. And if you allow me to share my screen with you, and we will get started. Now, I will say this, I will answer questions, but I will answer those questions at the end of my presentation, if you don't mind. Please just jot them down in the chat or send me or jot them down so we'll be ready for that. Okay.
If you put them in chat, we'll go back and scroll up and I'll go and find those for you. So you don't have to even do that work, Ms. Nadine.
Okay. So what to do if you can't pay your mortgage? Now, that is a loaded question. And before we get to that answer, I just want to share some things about finances, about money. The first thing I like to share, which is so important, and you'll see me moving you guys around, is a financial truth. It's not how much you make. Listen to me. It's how you manage what you make. I am Nadine L. Lang, and I have been a housing counselor for 26 years. And I have seen clients that earn $6,000 in retirement. And I've worked with clients that have been celebrities that make millions of dollars. And I've worked with folks that made $900 a month. And I look at them and I realize what they have in common with the person that makes thousands of dollars and the person that makes millions of dollars is one thing. They recognize it's not how much you make, it's how you manage what you make. And so let's talk about that, because the truth is you can only do 4 things with money. And if you can think of something else, let me know. I'll pay you for that. But basically, you can only do 4 things with money. And this is important when we're addressing our housing situation. You've got to keep in mind, I can only do 4 things with money. And then I call them the 4 S's of money. First, I can secure it. That's either earn it or inherited, or you may get a, you may be receiving retirement or pension or disability. I'm talking about legal ways, okay? And so you secure it. The second thing you do, and for those that have religious obligations, you share it. We call that tithes, offering. You share it. Now, for those that don't, I'm not saying you need to share it. I'm just saying this is the order, the correct order on how you handle money. The third thing is that you save it. You don't have to save a whole lot, but you save it. And one of the things that happened to me many, many years ago, I worked for a company and I wasn't making that much money. And every week I was putting $20 away, just $20. And I did that for about 5 years. And this was some time ago. And my girlfriend who worked for UPS fell out laughing. And one day UPS went on a strike. And I reminded her, baby, we've saved money for years for you all so that y'all can live while we were going on. And that was a while back when UPS went on the strike. And she laughed about that. And she said, you know what? I've got to realize that no matter how much money I make, I need to always set something aside. My next door neighbor was really the millionaire next door. They were a couple, a senior couple, where I lived in Northwest Atlanta. And she called me Renee. I never corrected my name, but every day she said, Renee, can you come and write checks for me? And I had Mama, and I won't call her name because we're live. She's gone on to be with the Lord, but I used to call her Mama so-and-so, and I'd come and write checks with her. And one day I said, Mama so-and-so, you got all these passbook savings accounts. What's going on? And she said, oh, baby, when I run out of one savings book, I pick up another. So you know that was a long time ago. That was in the 80s when that happened. So I sat down and pulled everything together. Now, I want you to know her husband was a security guard for the train station, a security guard. He was not working the trains. And she was cleaning houses. And between the two of them, they had saved over $1 million because they put just a little piece back every time they got paid. So the third thing you do is save it. But the fourth thing we do is spend it. Now, isn't it ironic that usually the second thing we do when we get money is spend it instead of share it or save it? And so these are the 4 S's of money. And we have to keep that in mind, because no matter where we are in our life, no matter what's going on, we've got to keep in mind, what will I do with my money? There's only 4 things I can do with it. And so when it comes to preparing for our financial dark places, and there are times we will have that, when it comes to preparing for it, there are some important steps that we need to take. And so let me talk about those steps. We're now getting into, how do I save my home from foreclosure? As a housing counselor, I talk to people constantly about what is called an emergency budget or crisis budget. Now, I have people that tell me all the time that their budget is in their back pocket, meaning that the money that they have in their wallet or in their purse. I want to let you know that that's only a part of your budget, because your budget is how you handle your money. And we talked about there's only 4 things we can do with it. And so how do we handle that money? Well, when we're in those dark places and when we're at a crisis, it doesn't have to mean your home is in trouble. It could just be a car note or whatever. We need to take some steps. And the first step I want to recommend is that we take the step of relaxing. It's so important that we gather our thoughts, cease from panicking. But here's the thing about that. It is easier said than done. Now, y'all know that. You tell somebody, girl, calm down, and they look at you and say, you wait till you get in that situation and tell yourself to calm down. But it can be done. We can begin to relax and say, wait a minute, let me remember who I am. I am a homeowner. I'm a person who worked hard. I'm a person who was smart enough to get money, to buy a house, to actually put money aside, to put money in a building. Listen to this, for wealth building. I'm smart enough to do that. And if I'm smart enough to do that, I'm smart enough to keep it. And so we start putting together a plan. And that plan cannot be out of urgency. I just got a note from a person who sent me a note, and this company sent him a note saying, hey, we want to help you. We can give you a loan at 9% interest rate. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you filed bankruptcy to protect your house. This is a hoax. And so that's why we have to stay calm. And Attorney Karen Brown will talk about the different scams that people find themselves in, especially when they're panicking. And so the first step is take a deep breath, back up, think about it. Think about who you are. I'm a homeowner. I worked hard enough and smart enough to buy an investment that will grow. Let me figure out how to keep this investment. Here's the second step. You want to create an emergency budget. I call it a crisis budget. Now, I do want to tell you about a crisis budget. You cannot live on a crisis budget for very long, because you will cut out things. You cut out lifestyle choices just to make ends meet. And the truth is, we're not built like that. It's just the way of living over here in America. So we want to make sure that we create an emergency budget that will get us out of our emergency and move us along. So what is the first thing we need to do with that emergency budget? I'm here to tell you, you just got to write down everything. I have a little book that I carry in my purse. And in my purse, in this little blue book, I thought I had it with me. In my purse, there's this little blue book, and I write down everything I spend. Listen to me. And every time I lend somebody something, even if it's 50 cents, I write it down, because that's part of my budget. I write down everything. And I have this mentality, if I spend it, I need to pin it. And so you write everything that you spend. Then what you're doing is journaling. Then you prioritize what your monthly spending bills are. What's important? Is it important for me to have my nails done or have food on the table? Is it important to me to have bottled water or to boil my water and stick it in the refrigerator, or to buy what is that, a pitcher that will filter my water instead of paying for all this bottled water? So you think about the essentials versus what's important. It might be important to me to have well, let me say this, it's essential for me, because I live way out, to have a vehicle, one that can get me from point A to point B without using all of my gasoline. But it could be important to me, but not essential, that vehicle, I'm here, and well, it is, that vehicle is a Jaguar green, which is my favorite color, sunroof top, gangster lean. That's important to me, but it's not essential. And so since I'm living only on essentials, I realize that that's a dream, and a dream that I keep in my mind, and I keep it as important to me, but it's not essential. What's essential to me is to have a vehicle that I can get to point A and point B without having a car note. And so those are things you have to think about, prioritizing what's essential, what's important. And I just use the car as an example, because if you're living in Atlanta, you know that's essential in many cases, that you have some type of transportation. And so step 3 is to add up the monthly cost of your priority expenses. And as you can see, I made a list of the priority expenses that I see. Shelter is important to me. The other day I was looking out the window downtown at my office, and here comes the ambulance and the police, and just all of the service people. And I stood there in tears, and my manager can tell you that. I stood there in tears because it's essential that people have shelter. And there was a man who literally, it was so warm, he fell asleep and it burned, the concrete burned him. And so they called 911 and took and carted him off. But that shelter is important. It's essential to all of us. Utilities are essential. Right now, we need coolness, we need water. Food is essential. Personal and medical care, that's essential. Transportation, whether I borrow that, whether I commute, or whether I share a ride with someone, transportation essential so I can get back and forth to work. Communication, having an affordable cell phone. I tell folks all the time, in my oldest sister, who is 85 years old, has an iPhone, okay? And she tickles the life out of me. And she said, girl, if you buy an iPhone, you'll never go back. Now, for those that got iPhones, I pat you on the back. But I'm convinced that my Android that costs $89 a year or every 2 years work just as well. And so that's essential for me, that I be able to communicate, that I be able to make phone calls. And today, with our system going out, I use my Android as a hotspot. That's essential. Family care is essential. So you identify and add up the monthly cost of the essentials, the priority expenses. You compare the monthly net income, and how many of you know you can't take gross to the bank? You just can't take it. The bank will not deal with it. So if your employer tells you you make $50,000, or if your Social Security check is $2,000, and we hadn't talked about the deductions, you know that's gross. Gross is before deductions, and you cannot spend gross anywhere but in your mind. That's the only place you can spend it. So, and that's the truth. So we have to add up the monthly cost and compare it to our net income. Now, I'm just telling you basic stuff because I believe all of you know that. I know y'all know these things. Then if the net income is greater than the priority expenses, you can survive this crisis, whatever this crisis is. If it means that your mortgage is behind, you can pretty much survive this crisis, because now we can work with housing counselors, we can work with legal aid to work out a monthly payment that will allow us to keep everything on budget. But if your net income is less than your priority expenses, here's what you have to do. And I'm just going to be real about it. You got to reduce and or eliminate. That's the reality of it. I just want to share with you this point, and I love this. I use this all the time because it's so true. Let me get back to it so you can see it if you want to make copies. And if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Samantha, you said that you will send the PowerPoint. If your outflow, meaning the money you spend, exceeds your income, and let me just share something with you. Your outflow include money, credit cards, your birthday gifts, money you find on the street. I have to say that because I pick up money all the time off the street. You'll see me walking, and all of a sudden I'll pick up something and look around and say, I wonder if somebody dropped this. Did anybody drop this? Oh, well, let me put it in my pocket. And so if your outflow exceeds your income, hear me out. If you're spending more than you're bringing in, your upkeep, the house that you love so much, that dream home, becomes your downfall. It will become a living nightmare. And so that's why we have to keep in mind that we may have to reduce or eliminate some things. Now, I've had clients to tell me, I talk to people, clients and other folks that tell me, you know, I can't leave my house no matter what. I just can't leave it. It is a part of our wealth building, but sometimes we have to back up and start over. So I'm not saying that we need to get rid of our home, but we might have to get rid of some things that's keeping us from having our home to be that dream home that we wanted. Again, step 4 is that when you realize that you are running short, then you've got to figure out 2 things. How can I increase my income? And how can I decrease my expenses? Increase my income. Can I bring somebody in the house where I live? And you know, when I was younger, it was so funny. I came out of New Orleans, and people that lived in New Orleans, when Katrina hit, folks were saying, you know, all these people living in one house. And what it was a generation home. Grandmama owned the home, mama lived there, and mama children lived there. And so we were just like that. My parents were well off, and my parents said, whichever sibling has the most money, that's where you go. And at one point, my oldest sister, who is now 85, she housed her 4 children, husband, and her 3 siblings, because what we decided to do was decrease our expenses so that each one of us could purchase a home. And so we learned what to keep when you're talking about decreasing your expenses, what to lower. Do I need to go out every week and get that haircut? Or can I learn how to do my own hair? Or can I do my own nails? You know, what to get rid of. Oh, Lord, have mercy. That, a long time. I don't want to get rid of it. Invested in Poshmark, where I had clothes I was like, what am I doing with clothes? I started selling clothes. That's increasing my income. You may have to take apart to decrease the number of folks that you're showing on your W-9 for, can bring in, have less taxes taken out, different things. And that you do accounting before you do something like that. If you're year from the IRS, if I'm getting $1,200, I just want to remind you of this, that if I'm not getting an investment in, I don't want you to hold my money. Figure out a way to take that $1,200, I would have it back in my budget. So those are things that you look at about increasing your expenses, turning off the nighttime, or when you walk out of your house, we thermostat to actually 78, and keep just so we can keep the house cool. And so you think can do. I don't eat. That's a decrease in your much money you spend by eating out. Or as I just run by something that's still eating out. You're picking up food so things like that. Those are small things, but I'm telling you, it's the little foxes burns up a field. And it's the little things, pocket and pockets. And so step 5 is you know what? Important for me to drive a certain car. It was important for me. It might be a time to reassess, and that to think about that in things to reassess. The best way to reassess, you have that emergency budget ready. Change your rent or your mortgage, my electricity. If we're a certain age, we can get, absolutely. We can reduce our grocery sale. I've learned that are basically the same. My worked for a bakery in high school. Something every time he shows me that bakery. I first worked. I love but every time I go to Mobile, I want you to know I go to Mobile about twice that bakery. But is that the same bread? And I won't get mad with me, but with the little is the same bread that says it's generic bread. So we may have to start items to purchase. That will help a whole lot. Churches where they're selling and pick up food. How many great things that you can buy. And then essentials and the necessary. Is it important that I go to the family reunion? It is. I get to see Auntie Bobby. It really is. It's not a necessity in financial trouble. So I take that off my budget. Take away every once in a while and go eat with my friends, enjoy myself. It's important that I do that, but essential that I do that. Wow. It's important to keep my hair and nails done. And Samantha earlier, and she said, everybody looks nice. Well, I've listened comb is my favorite. You save money when you learn how to press your own hair budget. It's important things, but you know what? I can do that by the office or when I'm hanging out with somebody. Oh, you got a streaming house that has the streaming service. I can take that off my budget right now. So based each one of you and saying to myself is that we have to ask what's important. It's essential. Do that. We'll find us. Could get rid of this. Why do I service? And so those are the things that you want to look at. Examples, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. If you came to see me directly about your budget, or if you go see, they would talk more with you. But here's what I want to, this is not a political statement, a human statement. The American dream, and that is that we have let me just share something with you. The nightmare when that home costs more to pay. So what we have to learn, our dream lives within budget. So I want to just share something with you before we go. This is real important. I don't care if things get. We talked about saving. Pay yourself. Or what you're doing. You're still important to the people that look up to you. You're still an important life. Pay yourself. Make you have some money. It's so important that you do that. Now, and I know this is not realistic, but I want you to think of I see so many people that are on this video, and if you start paying, let's look at 1 penny and what 1 penny can do of time. If we could double for 1 month, we'll have close to $5 million, 5.4. So say, now how you do that? Day 1, you put a penny aside. Day 3, then you start doubling. 4, you double. You do 4 times 2 and on. Well, that's that. We're thinking about compound now. You know, you can't save $5.4 million. And we got some folks that can do that. We need to hook up with them. If y'all somebody, tell them to call me. But really, ease what we can do. And my husband and I do this Christmas savings. And that is what we do for the first week in January. We put away $1, we put away $2, $3. By the time we get to week, now putting away 26, adding up. By the time we finish, we save close to $1,300. Now, what does that do? It makes us conscious of not, because we want to make sure that money is there. And so that there are ways to keep that alive. And part of it, I know that the economy is bad going on, but I also know that we can pool our resources together. We can downsize. So I hope that you will know that you are somebody that, and you can keep a lot just by keeping to spend less than what I make. And if I can't, I'm going to start downsizing to reduce some things. A part-time job. And I want you to keep in mind, even that's adding job is coming out of your home. Again, thank you for listening to me. I hope if you have the time to ask. If not, we have Dr. Brown, who is the attorney at Atlanta Legal Aid. Samantha, do we have questions? Did I cover everything? Tanya Williams, hey, Tanya, how are you?
Good morning, Miss Nadine. I am very well.
Are you saying good morning?
I mean, did I say good morning? Okay, this has been a long day. I know.
To be there, okay.
No, I'm here in Atlanta. I'm so sorry.
It's somewhere.
No, I wish. No, but thank you for this wonderful, I don't know if I'm kind of jumping forward. I thought,
Okay.
I'm in real estate. So my question was, yeah, I'm a broker. So my
Yeah.
question was, and this may be coming up. I was
Yeah.
going to ask, did you suggest speaking with the lender, like contact lender if you start to run problems? But I don't know if that's upcoming.
Well, actually, I have that in my written material. You always talk to the lender. You talk to any creditor when you, and there are so many programs out there right now. In DeKalb County, we have a program for those that are in DeKalb County that will assist. If it was COVID related, we have, and we have the mortgage companies. And I will asking that, contrary to popular belief, the mortgage companies do not want our. When we hear people say, that mortgage company want my house, I'm like, baby, no, they don't. No, they don't. They want you to pay out a way to come together, to be to work together. I I love these certain movies, and Rocky would say, I got 5 fingers, and we come together, we got a tight-knit situation. Well, we're going to have to learn how to come together with mortgage companies, and I'll be times homeowners cannot go to the mortgage company because we're so emotional. That is an extension of ourselves. So you want to get in touch with a professional. You want to get in touch with a HUD certified housing counselor. Do you hear what I'm saying? Housing counselor, as opposed to someone's going, I was in the neighborhood, I think I can help you. You want someone that will be willing to talk to your market. And we'll talk more about that. Karen Brown is an attorney, and Atlanta Legal Aid has and of course you have to qualify. When I say qualify, but there are other organizations, so many housing counseling agencies that will work with. Who need to talk to the mortgage company. We need to let them know where we are.
I say that, the reason I mentioned that is because a lot of times people feel like the mortgage company is the boogeyman, because it's almost like you think of it, if you can work to pay for that house, you can talk to the person that you're paying for that house. And like you said, to your point, the mortgage company doesn't want the house, but people wait for so long. And I think, and I know you're in the housing counseling, but if people were just told that, hey, call the mortgage company, if they're cashing your check, people need to be able to pick up the phone and say, feel comfortable talking to that person, because you don't need somebody to call for you when it's too late. Work with them, to your point. So I just feel like for some reason that's like a kind of a blockade, and particularly in our communities where people are like, oh, I can't talk. And then they wait until the situation is so dire. And then at that point, sometimes the mortgage company is like, hey, I will to you. So that was just my point. I just didn't know if
I think it's important that people reach out to the mortgage company early. But let me just say this, and I've been a housing, and I have dealt with from people at $900 a month to up to celebrities. Not everybody knows how to talk to a mortgage company, and they don't know how to ask the question. You're in the business, Tanya. And if you're not in the business of this, that you make sure you're talking to somebody like a HUD certified housing counselor, an attorney that will help the mortgage company. And yes, but remember, cashing our checks, but the truth is, it's all about the bottom line. And we want to be up with them. Here's what I tell the mortgage companies every time I talk to them, not every time. I want everybody to win. I want you to win, and I want my client to win. But I want my client to win first. How y'all feel about that? Drop the mic.
Okay. We have a question that's in the chat, but I believe that it might be covered by Dr. Karen. What should we expect from the mortgage company dialogue-wise? Dr. Karen?
I think Karen may talk about that. I think she will. If not, we'll come back around to it, because I'm running into her time almost.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I don't see any hands raised. All right, Dr. Karen, let's transition to your segment. Oh, wait, Daisy
Okay,
Walker.
Daisy Walker. Dang.
Thank you so much. I just have one quick question.
Uh-huh.
You had mentioned in DeKalb County, I reside in DeKalb County, about mortgage assistant program that will help you get caught up. Can you give me the name of those organizations?
Mortgage Assistance Program, MAP.
Okay.
It's in DeKalb County, and Karen, Atlanta Legal Aid, and get more information about that. MAP's number.
Yes, I'm actually going to talk about the DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program during my presentation. So, and yeah, and I will provide contact information for Atlanta Legal Aid where you can reach out to us about that.
So I guess that will be our segue into your presentation.
All right, thank you guys. I'm staying on to listen.
Thank you, Ms. Lang, of course.
Thank you, Nadine Lang. You are awesome, and it's a privilege to work with you. It's a privilege to hear you speak. And I always learn so much from you. And I've been fortunate to work with you for many years, and I always learn so much. So thank you for doing your part of the presentation. I'm going to try sharing my screen, which will cover foreclosure prevention and legal rights and loss mitigation options. So let's hope that this works, and let's hope that I can work it properly. Okay. Can folks see that? Can folks see this, my PowerPoint slide? Okay, awesome. Thank you. So my name is Karen Brown, and I'm the director and managing attorney of a specialized unit at Atlanta Legal Aid called the Home Defense Program. And I'm going to cover the topic of foreclosure prevention and loss mitigation options. So I want to give a little bit of information about what we do in the Home Defense Program. We provide advice, referrals, and legal representation to low and moderate income homeowners in the 5-county metropolitan Atlanta area. They may be at risk of losing their homes. They may be behind foreclosure, or sometimes folks call us after they've already been foreclosed on, and there might be facing a dispossessory proceeding. Folks may have been subjected to predatory mortgage lending abuses or servicing abuses. They may be eligible for and wrongly denied mortgage assistance or loan modifications or other foreclosure prevention alternatives, or they may have fallen prey to a home purchase scam or home equity or title theft. As I mentioned, our clients reside in the 5-county metro Atlanta area. It could be Fulton, DeKalb, Clayton, Gwinnett, and Cobb counties. Our clients tend to be longtime homeowners, elderly and or disabled, living on modest retirement income or disability income, or it could be younger homeowners who are working, but they're experiencing anything like layoffs or reduced hours or low wages. I'm going to cover in this presentation the foreclosure process in Georgia, some federal law protections for homeowners who are struggling with their mortgages. I'm going to talk about loan modification programs. I'm also going to talk about the Georgia Homeowner Assistance Fund, which we sometimes refer to as HAF. I'm going to cover the DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program, or DMAP, that was alluded to earlier and asked about earlier. And I'm also going to talk about some practical tips for protecting your home from foreclosure. All right, so what's the foreclosure process in Georgia? So the first thing that's important to understand about the foreclosure process in Georgia is that it is a non-judicial process. What do I mean by that? In about half the states in the country, there's a judicial process in order to foreclose. And what I mean by that is that the mortgage company, before they can foreclose, they have to file a lawsuit in court and get permission from a judge before they can foreclose. So that's about in half the states in the country. In the other half of the states, including Georgia, our wonderful state of Georgia, we have a non-judicial foreclosure process. That means that the bank or mortgage company, they don't have to file a lawsuit first. They don't have to get permission from a judge before they can foreclose. So when do foreclosures happen? They happen on the first Tuesday of each month. The first Tuesday of each month. Guess what? The first Tuesday of August is tomorrow. A lot of people are facing foreclosure tomorrow. Where do the foreclosure sales take place? They take place on the courthouse steps. So whatever county that person is living in, the courthouse in that county, that's where the foreclosure sales take place. What is required? So they don't have to file a lawsuit, but isn't there something else they have to do before the mortgage company can foreclose? Yes, there are some things they have to do under Georgia law. They have to send a letter no less than 30 days before the scheduled foreclosure sale. They have to send it by certified mail. And they also have to take out a legal advertisement in the local legal newspaper. And that legal advertisement has to run once a week, 4 weeks in a row prior to that scheduled foreclosure sale date. Now, that 30-day letter that I'm talking about, the law in Georgia requires that it be sent, and it be sent by certified mail and sent to the debtor, right? The person who's the borrower on the mortgage loan. But guess what the law does not require in Georgia? The law does not require that the borrower actually receive the letter. So we have laws, we have procedures. They offer some protection, but not a lot. So what about the homeowner who never gets that letter? Well, the law doesn't require that they receive it. The law requires that the mortgage company have sent it. And typically the mortgage company hires a law firm. There are law firms that specialize in handling foreclosures, and the law firms arrange for these foreclosure letters to be sent. Some of the law firms will send the letters regular mail and certified mail. It's not required that it be sent both ways. A lot of the newer law firms that are handling these, they just send it certified mail. So think about it, certified mail, the postal service worker brings that slip of paper and puts it in the mailbox. Well, a lot of people, well, what's that? Some important mail? Well, I don't have time to go get it. The post office is closed. So, and I can't go get it when, if, I'm working. So I can't go get it. But if you don't get it, then you don't see it. So that's a problem. It's important to get the mail. But anyway, so this is what's required under Georgia law, a 30-day letter that's sent certified mail and a 4-week legal ad. Now, the legal ad runs in the local legal newspaper. In Fulton County, that's the Daily Report. In DeKalb County, it's the Champion. But there are special newspapers that handle the foreclosure ads. And you're thinking, I don't read those legal ads. Most people don't. I don't read them. But guess who does? Investors and scammers. So they're going to be reading those legal ads, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. All right, so that's Georgia law. That's the Georgia legal process for foreclosure. There are also some federal rules that apply in these situations. And for most mortgage loans under federal law, the mortgage company is not allowed to initiate the foreclosure process until someone is 120 days delinquent. That's 4 months. So there was a time when Georgia law, all it required was a 15-day letter sent 15 days before the foreclosure sale. Well, in 2008, we got that law improved, so it's 30 days. All right, someone's not muted. Please mute. Thank you. But federal law, as of, I think it's 2010, or maybe it was in 2014, said that for most mortgage loans, you cannot initiate foreclosure until someone's 120 days behind. All right, let me move on to the next slide. Okay, so Ms. Lang covered a lot of this in her presentation, which was outstanding. So I'm just going to kind of go over some of that and talk about some of the tips that we encourage people to think about when they're in this situation. So, when folks are coming to us, they're struggling with their mortgages. So what does that involve? And, as Ms. Lang pointed out, many people face financial hardship. Most of us are going to face some kind of financial hardship at some point in our lives. It's just a part of life that we're going to face some kind of hardship, some kind of financial hardship. So what we advise is that you start working on a solution before you fall behind. And Ms. Lane gave tips about that. So, among other things, prioritize the mortgage. Try to cut out any unnecessary expenses. Try to, if possible, increase the family or household income. And of course, we advise folks to contact a nonprofit HUD-certified housing counseling agency, and there are a number in the Atlanta area, or contact Atlanta Legal Aid for free legal help, free housing counseling help. We also encourage, as someone pointed out earlier, we encourage folks to contact the mortgage company. We encourage folks, someone asked, well, what do I say? What do I ask for? And so here are some of the things we suggest that you ask for. Apply for any kind of loss mitigation option that's available. It could be a forbearance, and I'm going to talk about these in a minute, a repayment plan, or a loan modification. And when you do communicate with the mortgage company, we advise you keep good records of those communications. If you're emailing, you have those email records. If you're calling or if you're going through a portal online, some people communicate with their mortgage companies through an online portal. Keep records of that. If you're faxing or sending letters or receiving letters, keep copies of those communications. If you're calling, write down the name of the person you're talking with. And if they give you some kind of ID number that is associated with them, write down that ID number so you're keeping track of who you're communicating with, because this may be important later as you're talking with a housing counselor or a lawyer about that situation. It's important for us to know about those communications. And we also encourage people, open up all the mail from the mortgage company or law firms. You're getting letters from law firms, open up that mail. It's so important to know what is being said to you by the mortgage company or the law firm for the mortgage company. I know that when we're in crisis, we're struggling, I understand this idea. I don't want to think about it. I just want to escape it. I want my head under the sand. I just want to put the covers over me. I don't want to think about it. But it's so important to know what they're saying, especially for us housing counselors and attorneys, so that we can advise you. If we don't know what they're saying, it's harder for us to know what stage or what process you're in, or if you have any appeal rights, if they've denied you for something, or if they said something that is not proper under the law. It's important for us to know. All right, let's see. How do you know if you're facing foreclosure? So the first thing is, have you received a foreclosure notice? Like that letter that I talked about that's required to be sent no less than 30 days prior to the scheduled foreclosure sale. That letter has to be sent. Again, the law doesn't require that you receive it, but be on the lookout for it. Then you're facing foreclosure. And if you're behind on your payments, you have an idea, most likely, that something is going to be, a foreclosure is going to be initiated at some point. So be on the lookout for that foreclosure letter. Also, remember I talked about how one of the requirements under Georgia law is that they run a legal ad in the newspaper once a week, 4 weeks in a row, prior to that scheduled foreclosure sale. And I said, most people don't read that. I don't read it. Most homeowners don't read it, don't even know about it. But there are others who do. There are investors, there are bankruptcy lawyers who read those. There are scammers, all kinds of foreclosure rescue scammers, or people who they're reading those because they're going to then reach out to the poor homeowner because they know that person is feeling desperate, and they're going to prey upon that person. So if you start getting solicitation letters out of the blue from all these people, and they're talking about, oh, you're facing foreclosure, or they can help you, and all you need to do this, call them, email them, whatever. They want you to respond because they want, sadly, your money. They know that you're desperate, or they want to steal the title to the house, or the equity out of it, or your money. What is another place to learn whether or not you're scheduled for foreclosure? There's a website called georgiapublicnotice.com that pulls the legal ads from, certainly all the 5 county areas, as in many counties around the state. So you can check there, georgiapublicnotice.com, whether or not you're scheduled for a foreclosure sale. And you can also check the local legal newspaper if you're able to access it. Some of them, you can get that information online. Some of the legal newspapers don't allow you to access the online information without a prescription, but I think that the Daily Report information is public and doesn't require a prescription or subscription to access the information. One of the tips that we encourage people to look in more than one place, because just because a foreclosure sale isn't listed in one of these places doesn't mean the foreclosure sale isn't scheduled. So check in more than one place. All right. What are ways that someone can potentially stop a foreclosure sale? All right. Some of them are obvious, some not so obvious, some that might not be financially feasible, some might be more financially feasible. All right, so the first is to pay up the mortgage arrears. Obviously, if you're behind on the mortgage, pay up the arrears, and arrears might include late fees. And if the foreclosure sale is already scheduled, then likely they're going to add foreclosure cost and attorney fees on top of those arrears. So yeah, if you didn't have the money before, but now you have it, then you could potentially stop a foreclosure sale by paying up those mortgage arrears and fees. Another possibility, but that's obviously not viable for a lot of folks. Another option is to enter into a workout plan. I talked about before, like a forbearance or deferral or repayment plan or loan modification, or that state HAF program, the Homeowner Assistance Fund program, or DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program. Another option in theory is to enter into some kind of refinance. Now that's going to be hard for most people, because if you're already behind, then what good bank or mortgage company is going to make a good loan at low interest rate, low closing cost to someone who's facing foreclosure? Not always viable. But if it's something that you can do well before you're facing foreclosure, then that's maybe a potential option. It may be a potential good idea. And it really depends on the finances as to whether or not that's going to be a good idea, how high your existing interest rate is, if there are any other options such as a loan modification that might be better without any closing costs. So anyway, or for some seniors, a senior might qualify. In some situations, we might recommend a reversed mortgage to pay off the existing regular mortgage. And with a reverse mortgage, seniors who are age 62 and older might be able to get a reverse mortgage and pay off the bad mortgage. With a reverse mortgage, there's no requirement for monthly payments. It just requires that the person pay their annual property taxes and homeowners insurance premiums. So anyway, so that's another possible way to stop a foreclosure sale. Another is to sell the home. And again, like I mentioned before, selling the home when you're already scheduled for foreclosure is really tough. Selling the home for a good, fair price is really tough at that stage. And the reason is because it's public information that you're facing foreclosure. And so the potential buyers out there, they know that you're scheduled for foreclosure. So they're not going to offer top dollar for you. They're going to lowball you. So if you're really seriously thinking about selling, you want to do it well before you're scheduled for foreclosure. So it's not public information that you're behind, and you have a better chance of selling for a good, full sale, fair market price. All right, what are some other possible ways to stop a foreclosure? One is to file a lawsuit. Of course, you've got to have viable legal claims and get a TRO. What I mean by that is a temporary restraining order from a judge. So filing a lawsuit to stop a foreclosure sale, that doesn't stop it. You have to file a lawsuit, file a motion for a temporary restraining order, have a hearing in front of the judge, showing that you have viable legal claims that should result in the foreclosure sale not happening, and convincing a judge. And then you have to have a judge sign an order stopping the foreclosure sale. So there's a lot involved with that process. It's not so easy to get that done, but that in theory is another way to stop or prevent a foreclosure sale from happening. Now, the last option I have on this list here is to file bankruptcy. Bankruptcy is not something that most people want to file. A lot of people have a negative association with the idea of filing bankruptcy, but it is a legal way to stop a foreclosure sale. It stops the foreclosure sale from happening. And if your goal is to keep your home, we would advise the person to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy. That's the kind of bankruptcy where it stops the foreclosure sale. And then while you're in bankruptcy, you have to pay your regular mortgage payment as it comes due in the future, and also pay another amount to the bankruptcy trustee's office that is going to go towards paying the mortgage arrears. So it's a legal way to stop the foreclosure sale, and it involves a repayment plan so that you can eventually get on better footing with your mortgage company to keep the home. Now, some people may say, a lot of people may say, how can I pay my regular mortgage payment and another amount to pay the bankruptcy trustee's office is going to go towards paying the mortgage arrears? How can I do both of that? I can't even afford the mortgage. Well, there are some other options while you're in bankruptcy. You could apply for a loan modification in bankruptcy. You could apply for half or to the DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program while you're in bankruptcy. So there are other potential ways that are viable ways to file bankruptcy and try to keep your home. All right. Go to the next slide. Here's just another tip. If you're in a situation where you're scheduled for foreclosure sale and you're either able to come up with the funds to pay the mortgage arrears, or maybe you've borrowed money from family or friends to catch up the mortgage arrears and foreclosure costs and late fees, attorney fees, that kind of thing. If you pay that up, or if you get a loan modification from your mortgage company, or if you've been approved for the Georgia Homeowner Assistance Fund or the DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program, or the mortgage company agrees, because of whatever circumstances are involved in this particular case, they agree to stop the foreclosure sale. It is critical. It is critical, if you do any of those things, to get written confirmation that the foreclosure sale has been canceled. You don't want a situation where you've paid it up, you got a reinstatement quote, or you got a loan modification, or you got this or that, and you think you're all good, and this is, mortgage company is telling you this, but you don't get it in writing, and then foreclosure sale day passes, August 1st passes, and then they foreclose. And then you go back later and say, wait a minute, you foreclosed, you weren't supposed to foreclose because I paid up, blah, blah, blah amount. Georgia half paid up, blah, blah, blah amount. And then they say, well, you owed $5,500 and $5,525, and you only paid $5,500. And so because it wasn't the full amount, we went ahead and foreclosed. You don't want to be in that situation. So it's critical. You pay up whatever they say, you have that in writing, you have proof of whatever you've paid, you have proof of a loan mod or any of those things. And you get written confirmation from the law firm handling the foreclosure sale that they have canceled that foreclosure sale so that it will not take place. You're in a much better legal position if you have that written confirmation. All right. So that's just another tip for these situations. All right. Remember when I was talking about a forbearance? What in the world is a forbearance? So forbearance, this idea of a forbearance has been around for a long time, but it became more known by more homeowners during the pandemic, because one of the federal protections that was a prominent federal protection for people with federally backed mortgage loans is this idea of a forbearance. And what does that mean? It's a temporary pause in the mortgage payment. And it can involve either no payment at all, you're not required to make any mortgage payment, or it can be that you're required to make a mortgage payment, but it's a much lower amount than what you would otherwise have to pay. So it's a temporary pause in your mortgage payment. And it's not supposed to involve any late fees or penalties, but interest is still going to accrue on your mortgage balance. So this is one of the loss mitigation options for people who are struggling with their mortgages. It's not available in all situations, but it might be one option that's available. And it certainly wasn't available to people with federally backed mortgages, during the pandemic. And so what is our tip around that? Well, get the forbearance in writing. Make sure that you get that in writing. And that's going to be in a letter from the mortgage company. It might be on the online portal. It might be on the mortgage statement, but somewhere make sure that you get in writing that the mortgage company has approved you for a forbearance, and find out, well, for what period of time, because if the forbearance ends after 6 months, then you want to be able to ask for an extension, that sort of thing. Okay, what happens when that forbearance period ends? Well, even though you were not required to make mortgage payments during that period of time, whatever period that was, it doesn't mean that they're forgiving you. So those missed payments still need to be repaid. There's no forgiveness in a forbearance situation. And so our tip in this circumstance, when the forbearance period ends, contact the mortgage company, ask them, is it possible to extend the forbearance period? And in some cases, they may be able to do that. Get in writing that they've approved for that. And then certainly during the pandemic, you could apply by calling. In most cases, written application was not required and still isn't, but it again depends on the kind of mortgage loan. Again, keep good records. And then ask them about what are the options if you can't get the forbearance period extended, what are the other options? So generally the options and the specifics are going to depend on the kind of mortgage loan you have, but generally the options are, well, you can pay up the missed payments that you missed in full. Most people don't have those funds, but maybe some people do. Another option is if you're able to resume your regular mortgage payments going forward, they can defer the arrears and put those on the back end of the loan. There's different terminology for that depending on the kind of mortgage you have, but that's another kind of option. If you can pay the mortgage payments going forward, they can defer those arrears to the end of the term. Another general option is a loan modification, where they capitalize the arrears into the balance of the mortgage, extend the term, and possibly change the interest rate. They might keep the same interest rate. They might change the interest rate, and then you have a new monthly payment going forward. So those are generally the options. What if the mortgage company isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing? And, I love to think about the idea of mortgage companies always want to do the right thing. And, that may be the case with some people, but I will tell you, as a lawyer who's been with legal aid for 33 years handling these kind of mortgage company cases, the mortgage companies don't always do the right thing. So what are the possible ways I can address that? One possible way is to file a complaint with a federal agency called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and I provided the website here. Another possible place to file a complaint if the loan is an FHA loan is to call this number at the HUD National Servicing Center. Other possible ways to deal with this is to file an appeal or escalate the matter with the mortgage company itself. We always recommend do that in writing. Read the letters that you're getting about if they're denying you this or that. Are there appeal deadlines? What are those deadlines? Make sure you appeal within the time frame set out in those letters for those deadlines, and make sure that you keep good records. What about another option? Well, under federal law, you can send what we call a qualified written request. You can request information from the mortgage company, or you can send them a notice of error, or you can send one letter that does both, request information and notifies them of an error that they engaged in servicing the mortgage loan. So consider that, sending the mortgage company one of these, or RFI or NOE or both. It's critical that the letter you send include your name and address and your mortgage loan number, so they know who it is that is sending them this letter. That's critical. It's critical that you send this letter to a special address that is designated for receiving these kind of letters. So if you look at your mortgage statement, you're going to see a letter, an address where to send the payments. That's not the place where you send letters, these kinds of letters. There might be another address on the back of the mortgage statement that says this is where you send correspondence. That might not be the proper place to send a qualified written request or request for information or notice of error. You have to look for the special address on the mortgage statement, and also look at the online website for the mortgage servicer and look at, contact information. And you need to send this letter to that special address. All right, because if you don't send it to the special address, they're going to take the position that they haven't received your letter and they don't have to respond to it. I know it sounds ridiculous, and this is part of the law that I'm trying to convey to you. That's important if you want to send one of these kind of letters, that it's important what the letter say and where it's sent. And then, of course, we advise keep a copy of your letter and proof that you've mailed that letter, or proof of however you sent that letter. All right, let me step back and talk about the mortgage assistance programs in Georgia. There's one that the state has, there's one that DeKalb County has. People have probably heard about rental assistance programs. Yeah, there are some rental assistance programs, but what I'm talking about are mortgage assistance programs. One the state has, one DeKalb has. All right, the Georgia Homeowner Assistance Fund, HAF, was authorized in 2021 by the American Rescue Plan Act. Billions of dollars that was provided in funding to Treasury to be dispersed among the states. $354 million was allocated to Georgia. The purpose of the program is to prevent mortgage delinquencies and defaults, loss of utilities, and displacements of homeowners experiencing financial hardships, pandemic-related hardships, COVID-related hardships after this special date, January 21, 2020. So the Georgia Department of Community Affairs is the part of the state government that administers this program for homeowners who have to have experienced some kind of pandemic-related financial hardship. And the different kind of programs they have: mortgage reinstatement, principal curtailment, or assistance for other kind of housing-related expenses. That can include utilities or HOA expenses or property taxes the person has fallen behind on, and they experienced a pandemic-related hardship. The structure of the assistance. Now, some of you may remember that about more than 10 years ago, the state of Georgia, also the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, had another program that was a mortgage assistance program called Home Safe Georgia. And that provided mortgage assistance for people who were experiencing hardship during the economic crisis, during the Great Recession. The Great Recession. There were a lot of foreclosures that were scheduled. And so a lot of people were really suffering. And so they provided mortgage assistance to those who were eligible. But under that assistance program, they required folks to sign a security deed that was silent and, would be forgivable, but that was something that was required to be signed, and that security deed was filed in the deed records. And then, assuming all went well, then within 5 years after that, they would cancel it. So that was back then. Under the Georgia Homeowners Assistance Fund now, the program is such that you're required to sign a grant agreement, but you're not required to sign any documents that would make it a lien against your home or any kind of security deed that would be filed in the deed records. So there is a grant agreement, but no lien against the home. The payment, if you're approved and you sign this grant agreement, the payment goes directly to the mortgage company, not you, or to the property tax office or the insurance company, if it's related to your home insurance premiums, or the condo association or homeowner association or utility provider. The maximum amount of assistance under this program, $50,000. And for more information about that program, go to the Georgia mortgageassistance.ga.gov website. All right, so let me talk about the DeKalb County COVID Mortgage Assistance Program. This is unusual. I'm not aware of other counties that have a mortgage assistance program. DeKalb does. It's a much smaller program, but it's also designed for people who are struggling with their mortgages or HOA dues or property taxes. And if they've been they've experienced a financial hardship that was related to the COVID-19 pandemic. It's targeted to DeKalb homeowners with income less than 80% AMI. They prioritize seniors and people with disabilities. Of course, it's designed just for homeowners who reside in DeKalb, who own their home, they live in their home. And the homeowner, or in some cases a co-borrower or spouse or other household member, must have experienced a qualified COVID-related financial hardship. So there are income requirements. And as I said, 80% AMI is the maximum. And then there may be additional underwriting criteria. So what are the programs that are offered? Mortgage reinstatement assistance, catching up someone on their mortgage, or there's a limited payment assistance going forward. And then property charge default resolutions, such as property taxes, property insurance, or HOA or condo association fees. And just like the state program, there is no requirement that any lien or security deed be signed or filed in the deed records. It's just a grant. So the program is administered by DeKalb's nonprofit partners. Atlanta Legal Aid is one of them. Our House Inc. is another, and then the Atlanta Urban League of Greater Atlanta. The Urban League of Greater Atlanta is the other nonprofit partner in this program, and I've provided, sorry about this, the websites and phone numbers for these programs. All right, so I'm going back to that slide that I had earlier in this session. How do you stop a foreclosure sale? Pay up the arrears, enter into some kind of workout plan, refinance if possible, sell the home and make sure that you sell and you get the full value, the fair market value of the home. Don't do what we call refer to sometimes as a short sale. Don't try to sell when you're facing foreclosure, because you're not going to be able to sell when you have such a limited period of time. You're not going to be able to sell for a full fair market value. Another possibility in some cases is to file a lawsuit. You need to get a TRO from a judge or file bankruptcy. Okay, let me shift to what if the person has already been foreclosed on? What if someone went through that process and they didn't get to a HUD certified housing counselor, they didn't get to legal aid, or maybe they tried all of those options, but nothing worked and they weren't able to do anything to stop the foreclosure sale? If the foreclosure sale has already happened, then that person sadly no longer owns their home. They no longer own the home. Whoever bought the house at the foreclosure sale, they now own the home. And whoever bought the house at the foreclosure sale could be the mortgage company. And in the 10 years ago or so, it was typically the mortgage company that bought the house at the foreclosure sale. More often these days, who's going to buy the home at the foreclosure sale is an investor. It's an investor who's bought the home at the courthouse steps. So what happens after they buy it and you no longer own it? There you are, you're in the home, but it's been foreclosed on. Well, sometimes, must say I'm not seeing a lot of this. Sometimes whoever bought the house at the foreclosure sale will offer cash for keys and say, hey, if you'll move out within so many days, we'll pay you X amount of dollars. And that might be something, maybe you're prepared for that and can do that. And if you can, great. If they offer it, they're not legally required to offer that. What else can happen? If they don't offer cash for keys, or you can't really do the cash for keys deals because you need more time, or you're just not ready to move out. What can happen, and what is likely to happen, is that they will file an eviction action against you in the county magistrate court. In order to actually evict you, they cannot just come to your house the day after, the day of the foreclosure sale, or the day after, and say, hey, we're moving you out. They can't do that. They can't do it that way. So even though under Georgia law, the mortgage company doesn't have to file a lawsuit to get permission from a judge in order to foreclose, after the foreclosure sale, whoever buys, they cannot just evict you. Maybe you'll work out some agreement about moving out, but in order to evict you, they have to file something in court and get permission from the court get an order from the court before they can evict you. So what's that eviction process? It's just like evicting a tenant. So whoever the new owner is, they have to file a dispossessory warrant in the county magistrate court or state court. The marshals will then come and serve you. I say the tenant, but it's really the former owner in this case. And they might tack on mail. They might tack that dispossessory warrant on the front door of the house. So we say, look on the front door every day, look in your yard, make sure there's no dispo warrant that flew out the door when you opened it. You need to look for that because you need to know when you were served, or they might hand it to you in person. So they're going to serve you one of those ways. The answer is due in court. Your answer is due in court, set within 7 days of being served. That timing is critical to know and to comply with. So you need to file your answer in court within 7 days of the service. You might know, well, when was I served? I don't know. Well, send, contact Atlanta Legal Aid. We can look at the dispossessory warrant. We can look at the legal information and figure that out and then advise you, this is your deadline. This is when you need to file the answer in court no later than this date. So once you file your answer, a trial will be scheduled or hearing in front of the judge. And it used to be that would happen within 7 days. That has been delayed, certainly in recent years because of the pandemic. There have been a lot of court delays, but it might be 7 days. It might be the week after, it might be a couple of weeks after, but a trial will be scheduled. And our advice is go to court, go to your trial. It might be virtual, it might be on Zoom, it might be in person. And the reason we say to go is because if you don't go, then you will automatically lose and the judge will just automatically allow them to go ahead and they may issue a writ and say you can then be evicted. If you go to court, even if you lose, if you go to court and if you lose, the judge will give you 7 days to move. So you've got 7 days, your answer is due within 7 days of being served. Your trial is going to be a week or a couple of weeks or some point after that. And then you go to court for your hearing and the judge, even if you lose, will give you 7 days to move. So that's some time. It's not a lot of time, but it's some time. So it's important to know your legal rights. So you know your timing. All right. So I've gone over a lot. There, I've glossed over some legal rights and options. There are always details. There are always more details, and they depend on the person's financial situation, the kind of mortgage they have, and what their legal circumstances are. But people who are eligible can get free legal advice. There is something that is part of Atlanta Legal Aid called the Georgia Senior Legal Aid. That's part of Atlanta Legal Aid, and that's for people who are age 60 and older. And here's the phone number for that, 404-389-9992. For people who are not 60 or older, you can contact my program, the Home Defense Program of Atlanta Legal Aid. And here's the phone number for our intake line, 770-817-7538. That's the intake line for the Atlanta Legal Aid Home Defense Program. You can also apply online by going to our website at atlantalegalaid.org. And there is a way to apply for legal assistance online. All right. And just remember where you can get help is at atlantalegalaid.org. Also, you can find HUD certified housing counselors. And there are some great HUD certified housing counseling agencies out there. You can go to this website that HUD has for finding a nonprofit HUD certified housing counseling agency, and you can contact one of those to see if you can get assistance, free assistance. Also, if there's been some kind of scam that you're aware of, you can report it to the Federal Trade Commission at this website, www.ftc.gov. Right. Time for questions. I hope this information has been helpful, and both Nadine and I are around for questions and answers if we can provide that. Thank you for your attention, and I'm gonna. I guess I'll stop my screen share.
Yes. So we have a question in the chat. Under the Georgia HAF program. Do you know if all funds have been distributed? And if not, are the funds required to be returned to the federal government, or can the state of Georgia use the funds at will?
Those are all good questions. I know the answer to the first question. Have all the funds been distributed? No. They still have a lot of money left over. I don't know exactly. Several months ago, I had heard that they had already spent 30 million. I don't exactly know what it is these days. And there is a way to look online for that information, but unfortunately there's a lag in the reporting. So if you go to the website that has this information, it's talking about the funds that had been spent and the funds that are available as of the last reporting period, but it can be 6 months. The last reporting period that they reported on could have been 6 months ago. So, but anyway, they have not used up all the funds. Are the funds required to be returned to the feds? I actually don't know exactly. I think that's possible, or can the state use I don't think Georgia can use the funds at will. I think they're required to use the funds pursuant to the Treasury rules and the statutory rules under the American Rescue Plan Act. But I think that the state is trying to get those monies out. They're not doing as great a job as we would like. But I know that Ms. Lane was part of a conference call with some folks at the Department of Community Affairs earlier this month, and they announced that they have worked on revising the underwriting guidelines to make the eligibility criteria and the process less restrictive than what it had been. So that's some hope, but I think there's a lot of money left. And if you think that you might be eligible, look at the website and apply. And if you apply and you're turned down, or if you're having some problem with the application process, let us know. Reach out to us or a HUD certified housing counselor.
Ms. Daisy Walker?
Yes, I have a question in reference to the CAB MAP program. I was recently turned over to another company outside of my lender because I fell behind in my payments. Would I be eligible for that program, or what are my steps in terms of that, in terms of trying to get assistance with mortgage?
So you can contact at my office, the intake line at my office, or you can contact Urban League of Atlanta to see about applying for the DeKalb Mortgage Assistance Program. If you've had a financial hardship related to the pandemic or COVID, then contact us and apply. So that's how we start the process. And
Okay,
the fact that your mortgage company has changed recently, that really doesn't matter. That doesn't have anything to do with it.
My second question is, with the Georgia HAF, let's say you got assistance last year and you're still having trouble. I know you mentioned that they have changed some things around. Can you apply for assistance again, or they won't help you out if they help you out the first time?
There was a time when they were taking the position that once they've helped you, they won't help you again. But my understanding is that they've changed the underwriting guidelines and that they are now open to helping people, even if they provided assistance before. However, there is still a cap of $50,000. So if the assistance someone got the first time around was $50,000, they're not going to be able to get assistance again. But if they got assistance of less than that, let's just say they got assistance of $30,000, then they should be able to go back and ask for that additional assistance.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We have another question in the chat. How does Chapter 13 consider, scroll it up. How does Chapter 13 consider cars, credit cards when filing?
All right. Well, that's a good question. It's a little bit outside my purview. I'm not a bankruptcy expert, but my basic understanding is that when you file any kind of bankruptcy, you have got to report to the court on the various petition and schedules and forms that you fill out and file with the court hopefully with the help of a bankruptcy attorney who knows what they're doing. You have to report what you own, namely your home and maybe your car, or maybe if you have an interest in family property or whatever. You have to report what you own and also who you owe and how much. So you have to report, well, I've got this car and that car, I've got this car loan, that car loan, I've got all these credit card debt. And you have to report all of that information. So all of that will be reported to the court, and you would be discussing all of that with your bankruptcy attorney so that, and all of that will be considered, and the value of your home and any equity in the home, all of that will be considered in figuring out what kind of plan can be proposed to the court for you to catch up, most importantly, on your mortgage debt and possibly on your car loan debt. And is there a way to discharge some of that credit card debt? I mean, all of that is going to be dependent on the value of your home, the value of your assets, and the amount of your debts and your income situation. So, but just keep in mind, since we're focusing on the home and ways to try to keep the home, you can also think about, while you're in a 13, applying for a loan modification or one of these mortgage assistance programs, if that's possible. Any other questions?
Are there any other questions? I don't see any hands raised. Oh, all right. Okay, well, we're getting some extra time. Thank you so much, Miss Nadine and Miss Karen. You guys did a really, really awesome job. Again, I love when we partner with you all, and I always find out something new. So thank you again for providing this information to our communities. We absolutely need it and love it. Everyone, you will be receiving an email after this course with an evaluation, but I also put it in the chat. So I figured while I had you here, you could take that 1 minute and fill out the course evaluation for me. We definitely want to continue to make our courses relatable and relevant and just top tier. So we need your feedback to do that. And what else do we have coming up? Okay, so here's a list of our upcoming courses with NPU University. We actually had to switch a date around for our Atlanta City Design course. But coming up next month, Introduction to Geographic Information Systems. So if you're not familiar with the GIS system and how you can use it to find information on properties in Atlanta, we will be teaching you how to do that. And that's on August 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. and that's virtual.
Wow.
Then we have our Parliamentary Procedures 2 course, managing discussions around hot topics. Oh, hot topics, sorry, the typo. And that is August 31st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And then next month, we will be kicking off our Atlanta City Design, September 14th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And that is in person. So as far as anything that is related to NPUs, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the handle at NPU Atlanta. And you can follow us on Nextdoor at City of Atlanta Neighborhood Planning Units. And if we don't have any more questions, comments, or just everybody just want to see your beautiful faces, I bid you all a good night. And thank you again for participating in NP University today.
Good night.
Everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Karen Brown, you did an excellent job. Yeah.
Well, Miss Lang, you did an excellent job. You always inspire me.
Oh, wow. Hey, we're glad to see everybody do well on your classes, and hopefully we'll be back soon.
Absolutely. Everyone, good night.
Good
All
night.
right.
Take care.
Thank you, Miss Terry. Thank you, Miss Terry, for
Thank you.
coordinating this. We really appreciate it.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Yes. Take care.
Take care.